We will now begin the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency's meeting today, Tuesday, June 11, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. Would everyone please rise for invocation by Board Member Pensurga, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that will affect the families of Boynton Beach, and continue to remind us that all we do today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth and for the greater glory of you and for the service of our neighbors. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Graham.
Here.
Vice Chair Katz. Here. Board Member Plowman.
Present.
Board Member
Present.
Here.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? I'd like to add to future agenda, Family Dollar. Building is closing, and what exactly did the past CRA do, and what can we learn from this so that it doesn't happen again, and reach out to the new owners so that we can work with them to see how we can activate that area. The other thing is announcement of a food truck invasion on 7C. We may have a motion to approve as amended.
Mayor, I'd like to add something under future agenda since we're on that topic now.
Yes.
I'd like to have an open discussion. I plan on bringing my own information, but also I would like to ask staff if they can pull up any information in regards to the conversation that we had last time about joint venture agreements. I'd like to educate the board a little bit more on that, so I'd like to add that under future agenda items, and we can talk about it and educate ourselves a little bit better. Thank you. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Agenda is approved unanimously. Tara, anything from legal?
Nothing from me tonight, thank you.
All right, informational items and disclosures by board members and CRA staff. Vice Chair Katz, would you like to begin?
Nothing to disclose.
Board Member McCray.
No disclosure, but I'd like to say to Board Member Pensurga, thank you for your prayer tonight. It's a breath of fresh air, sir. Thank you.
Board Member Romulus.
I would ditto that. Bravo. I simply just want to mention that I did have a brief conversation with Bonnie Miskell in regards to one of the items on the agenda tonight.
Board Member Pensurga.
I met with the leadership of the Community Caring Center.
And I have spoken with a couple of members of the Board of Directors for Community Caring Center this past month. That is it. Seeing no further informational items, moving on to announcements and awards. Our first is Rock the Marina and Lionfish Derby recap.
Good evening, Board. Mercedes Coppin, Business Promotions and Events Manager. The Rock the Marina and Lionfish Derby event was held on Saturday, June 1st, and the event featured live music and displays from local businesses and marine-based nonprofits. It was a great way to activate the open space of the marina. According to the data that was collected by the live gauge devices that we use to track attendance, there were approximately 370 unique impressions captured in the open space of the marina on the day of the event. For the Lionfish Derby, we had 48 divers who went out for approximately 6 hours to hunt the invasive lionfish. Altogether, 535 lionfish were removed from our local waterways. In addition to working with the 4 dive charters that operate out of the marina, we did a cross-promotion with Fly and Flow Fitness, who offered a donation-based yoga class during the event. We also partnered with 4 CRA area restaurants for a lionfish dip contest. The participants were Driftwood, the Fish Depot, Sweetwater, and Hurricane Alley. This was definitely one of the most engaging business development initiatives that we've had. We had 267 people actually cast a vote for their favorite lionfish, with Driftwood coming out to be the winner of the competition. And Driftwood was also on site as a celebrity chef. Overall, the feedback that we received from all of our participating businesses was very positive. Marina Cafe, which is located right there at the front part of the marina, they indicated that their sales were up by 80% from the Saturday before. Two Georges said that they saw a 30% spike from the previous year. And the Boynton Beach Dive Center, who we also worked with for this event, said that they had $4,000 in sales on the day of the event. So overall, very successful business development. Any questions?
No, I just have some comments I'd like to talk about because I was one of the participants for as a diver for the lionfish. And just to give a little bit more information about the lionfish is that it is an extremely invasive species that eats the young fish along the reef. And these young fish are the ones that clean the coral from algae. And without that, the algae overgrows the coral and suffocating it. Plus, there's not as much fish for us to catch or for the other fish to eat. I had a lot of fun because we didn't necessarily go to any named reefs. We just went trolling along the third largest reef system in the world, which is right outside our front door, as we can see outside. I think it was an amazing thing that we were able to do, and I encourage us to do it again in the future because there's still more lionfish out there, and just trying to expand it. I think it was a huge crowd when we got off the boat, and then I think the rain dispersed everybody a little bit early, and really appreciate the board allowing us to venture into this new aspect of our promotions of having a diving tournament. And I spoke with a lot of the different vendors, and they'd like to have another diving tournament to help remove some of the trash associated on our reefs sometime in this winter. Yes, Board Member McCray. Okay, Board Member Romulus.
Just wanted to add that I do like the facts and figures that you provided for us in terms of the 4,000 that you said that the particular restaurant had, and the other one that said they had a certain number of percentage increase from the year prior. If you could try to work some of those numbers into future updates so that we know how effective. I mean, I just knew it just by attending this event and seeing how many people were there and having my kids touch the cool
Right, at the Reef
starfish and
Institute
little-
tent.
Yeah, that was
very
really cool. I just saw it just by that, but to see the numbers and to hear the facts and figures of the success of this event, this just helps to quantify what we're doing and telling us that we're doing it right. So I'd like to hear more of that in the future for when we do these other Rocky Plaza
Absolutely.
events. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board
Right,
Member.
thank you. I want to say thank you for your report as well. I used to dive the reef that the chair was talking about many times. I wind up being a crazy person. I wind up being a dive master. But anyway, what I really wanted to say was I was coming down, but I stuck my head out that door, and that heat hit me, and I said, I don't care how many lionfish they catch today, I can't go.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
I feel like I learn more about Commissioner McCray every time.
Yes.
More and more every time.
Yeah,
Dive master.
loved it.
Love it.
All right, Michael, or I guess Vicki?
Good evening, Board Chair, Board members. Vicki Hill, CRA Finance Director. It's that time again for us to get the budget together for fiscal year 1920, and this will be
For
our...
1920.
Yes, sir. 2019, 2020.
Yeah, but she said 1920. I'm okay.
Not going back.
And if board will approve, these are the days that we would like to have the board, the budget presentation. It will start in July at the CRA board meeting, July 9th, and whatever is taken on July 9th will be reviewed by the CRA advisory board on August 1st. Then we will come back on August 13th to review, and then it will go back to the CRA Advisory Board meeting, and then we will approve in September, if that is okay with the board. Do you have any questions?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The announcement that I'd like to bring up is that Food Truck Invasion just got a permit paid today for June 21st, which is the beginning of summer over at our Harvey Oyer Junior Boat Ramp Park. I believe they're going to have 7 different food trucks. This is the first time that they're doing this Food Truck Invasion at a park. I'd like the CRA to stop by so that if we have the other parks in the CRA district like JC, Intracoastal, Sarah Sims, to see if that's something we would want to pursue in other parks to get more people out there from around the community and area. And the time again is from 5:30 to 9:30.
What time do the parks close?
Normally it's sundown, dusk. And so, but I think because there's lights, you know, I know they close later. So like Intracoastal, I believe, closes at 10 because they have lights.
I don't have a problem with it, but as long as the park rangers know that something is going on, that's my concern.
Any questions for the information only? Seeing none, moving on to public comments. Individual speakers will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Hold on one second. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for those commission members who were nice enough to come speak to my student during the Memorial Day event. These are her thank you letters, so thank you very much for your time. I'd like to say, I don't know if everyone noticed, but Boynton Beach has a French Open winner. Layla Fernandez of Boynton Beach won the Girls Junior French Open at Roland Garros like 2 days ago. Yay. And according to the newspaper, she moved to Boynton because of all of our tennis courts compared to the other cities. So yay for us, because, you know, Delray usually gets all the tennis stuff, and we got a chance to get a French Open winner. So congratulations to Layla Fernandez. I'd also like to say that I know I missed the last CRA meeting, but I wanted to acknowledge the survey results. You'll note that issue number 1 and 2 for the businesses on the survey were having more flowers and landscaping, and I believe I've brought those ideas to you repeatedly over the years. I know I briefly discussed this with Mike Simon at some point, the beautiful village concept of, and he said once we get, you know, past Town Square and get moving forward some, this is definitely something the businesses want, and I've been speaking to this issue for years. We really need to start beautifying our city, and, you know, apparently the businesses all agree because flowers and landscaping were their number 1 and 2 issues. So I know they didn't hear me talking, but that's justification from our businesses that they want the same thing I keep advocating all these years now. So thank you for your time.
Good evening, Minister Bernard Wright, CEO of Bernard Wright Ministries, Real Talk Radio, and the Robbie Wells Foundation. I'm here tonight as Citizen Bernard E. Wright. I have something I'd like to give all of you all from the dials a copy of what I'll be speaking about. On the top and bottom. From the top and from the bottom. Appreciate it. Here also with me is case law in respect to what I'll be speaking about that has the authority over what we're talking about tonight. How you doing, Mike? Great. Always good to see you. Regrettably, we're here under the circumstances, but it's one that need immediately addressing, I would think. Has to do with me being trespass warned from a public park that I've had an interest in from it being built from long ago. Not only that, but recently you all know that I'm there every day because of a child that's been in Poinciana, which I'm a student advisor on the student advisory committee, and I'm always with both of those facilities. And so just Friday, June the 7th, something happened on June the 6th. I happened to be out there to witness because I had my grandchildren and my neighbor there being, daddy daycare this summer. But at any rate, there was something happening in the pool because Crystal is running a swim lesson there that costs. And with little kids, and one of the parents didn't appreciate the way she moved the child to the side. I was there, not party to, but to witness it. Crystal couldn't seem to handle it. The girl was a bit, yes, rambunctious, but at any rate, she's a parent. And so I just thought it was, over with because it was right at 5 o'clock. We all got our children out and we left. The next day, I brought my children, my grandchildren, and my neighbor to the pool, and I was told that the hours now would be reduced from 4 to 5. And when I asked why, I was told that because of the incident yesterday. I began immediately to say, hold it, wait a minute. You are now reducing an hour of our time, community time, which involves not only the children, but adults too, which is 4 hours a week, and you count that 52 weeks a year, because you couldn't handle a situation yesterday. I don't think that is not only appropriate, but right. However, this came from city commission approval down that I was instrumental of through my ministry through 2 different mayors. And I was denied by Mayor Graffin Wright that I had anything to do with the changing of the hours and the dollar being taken from the children up until 12 years old, which I was instrumental to with evidence of, and we have minutes of that. However, I can't see through staff that someone could call and say, we want the hours changed from 4 to 5, and I'm the guy that got them this way, and it's on there 5 o'clock. And I don't say anything about it. However, in that order, you'll see some descriptive words, yelling and that. But have I done anything to constitute the warrant being trespass from a public facility that I am a citizen of and maintain through my tax dollars, and who I am as a minister of the gospel, and as a community advocate, and I'm saying a year, because that's what it calls for. However, and you not having a procedure by which I can immediately contest the allegation to see the validity of it, does it warrant this? Because this is a punitive measure being taken from me without due process of law, which give me the 1871 now Civil Rights Act that came in effect in 1961 through the United States Supreme Court ruling Monroe versus Pepe. As a citizen, when you do me wrong under the color of state law and violate a constitution protected right, which is liberty interest involved here, I can sue you, but we ain't trying to go there. I got children all summer, and we want to make this pool decent. But, my grandson was traumatized. We have video footage where there was a guy next door videoed the whole thing. You have video footage from the center that show that my actions and
Mr.
conduct
Wright,
did not warrant this. And so,
before you continue with the facts, what would you like to see happen?
just move the trespassing because it didn't warrant that. That's all.
Mayor,
So that's something that we
The
can-
warrant. Because
There's not a warrant out.
Mayor, may
yeah,
I?
they gave me a case number like that, Mayor, and this is convenient to them. I had to go down and pay 30 cents for the report, which is, wow, far-fetched, but yes.
Excuse me. Yep.
Board Chair, I just would like to remind the audience that this is the meeting of the CRA Board. You are not authorized to do business of the city at this meeting, so I would not respond to that particular allegation or comments, because unfortunately those sound like things that are to be addressed by the city and not the CRA.
Oh, no,
Unless
I was
Mr. Wright
just-
has a request for the
I
CRA.
if you have a request for the CRA, that's what we're here to listen to. You have used a little bit more than your 3 minutes. I'll give you another 30 seconds to finish your public comments.
Okay, I was advised by one of the commissioners, by the grace of God, thank you for having a listening here before the meeting, that it would be a good time. And guess what? It's an issue that calls for immediate, you understand, attention. And y'all the same that sits on the dais of the city commission. I understand 2 different entities, but the same. We understand that. And so I'm trying to expedite this, bring it to your attention without any legal, the attorney having anything to say. Y'all show me where I can come. My attorney going to address y'all minutia tomorrow. and seeing what procedure you have for me. And the law says here that it is, you know, because you don't have one, you can't even do it, but you have done it. And I don't want to put myself and subject myself to an arrest, which brings me into a criminal action now. And I'm not out here committing crimes. I'm out here helping my people, the community, and you all know this.
Here.
Okay, to God be the glory. So how do we handle this from this point?
And
Is
just
what I'm asking. How do we handle it from this point?
for clarity,
All right, and I'm going to say, Mr. Wright, thank you for your comments.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to step down from the podium.
Okay.
Vice Chair Katz?
I would just caution this board and in the capacity as a city commission as well, if law enforcement sees fit to execute the law, we have no role in that. We are a legislative body, that is the executive branch. We need to be very careful about what we say we may or may not do. If law enforcement carries out the law, then that is a matter for us if we want to ask the city manager, but I don't think it's our purview to interfere with law enforcement as a legislative body. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Barbara Bernardin, address 9873 Lawrence Road, Boynton Beach. Mayor, I know earlier this year you had mentioned an initiative about internship, summer internship for youth from the community. And one of my mentees would like to intern with the city of Boynton Beach in the finance department. I know there was a lady in the public, she works for the city. I do not see her here tonight. She was kind enough to give me her information. I don't know if she still works for the city, but I wanted to know who will be the point of contact for a summer internship, knowing that the city is like under construction and.
So this is the CRA, as we mentioned earlier today, that we cannot perform city functions on this board. I would suggest sending us an email with a resume.
Okay.
And we will send it to we can send it to the city manager and have a discussion and help with one of your mentees.
And do I send it to all the commissioners and including yourself?
I would send it to all of us. That way
Okay.
you make sure that it gets done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Here,
Yes.
Also, don't only send it to all of us, send a copy to, hello?
Barbara, we're not finished. Yeah.
Right, and so sending it to all of us, I'm just saying, you can also send a
Yes.
copy to the city manager as well.
Okay, I'll be
Yeah.
sure to do that. Thank you. My
That's it.
apologies. Sorry, sir.
No problem.
No worries. All right. Is there anyone who has not spoken who would like to speak for public comments? Seeing none, moving on to CRA projects in progress.
Good evening, Board Chair and Board members. The item before you is just an update on our economic development grant programs and the new businesses within the CRA district. As of today, we have awarded under our economic development and commercial improvement grant $167,879. We originally started our budget with $554,356. We provided a list of board-approved grantees, which I'm happy to go through. And during the month of May, there were 5 new businesses that obtained a business tax receipt from the city, which does not necessarily mean they are open and operating, but they have applied for their license within the city. So that's the update on that item for you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Yes, Board Member
I have a
McCray.
question, and it's probably to, I don't know your name. Bonnie, I know your name, yeah. Okay, when I came in, you was advertising several businesses within, the CRA district. Are they up there tonight? You did the printing company, and you also did the dive shop.
Correct. Most of those have been grant recipients in the past or currently. Some of them have been a few years ago,
Okay.
but they're all businesses within our district.
Right, they're in the CRA district, but I'm just saying, are they a part of whatever we do in the economic thing? Are they a part of this?
Yes.
Okay, that's the question I was asking. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Seeing none, Michael, if you'd like to move on to the next item.
Good evening, Chair and board members. Twee Shutt for the record. The next item is Sarah Sims Park project update. Just to be brief, so that you can see some of the progress photos. To be expected in the month of June, there'll be some curbing and landscaping that will begin. The restroom building will be completed by the end of this month, hopefully, and the lighting and power should be on by the end of this month. Next month, you will see the irrigation will be completed and landscaping to be installed. Around the third week of July, you'll see the decorative fencing will be up, and hopefully irrigation and all the other items will be completed by August. To note, the amphitheater reinstallation will begin preferably July 1st. We will go back to the board next month to ask for additional funding to do this. The costs, I believe the City Commission has already reviewed it at the May 8th meeting for the contract for Homerich Corporation. That's the company that assembled it, and the city has gotten bids, and they were the lowest bidder to reassemble it so that there'll be, at the request of the community, a place from the whole gathering, and there'll be an amphitheater that will be erected at the south end of the park. So with that, I'm here for questions if there's any.
Is the tentative completion date still the same?
It's reported by Mr. Gary Dunmeyer, August.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is about the restrooms. Will they be locked?
I believe yes. Okay. There'll be an IT room in there for the security equipment and everything, but yes, it'll be managed like any other restroom in the city as well.
Also, with the board's support, I would like to offer any assistance that we can, staff and or otherwise, if we have any funding left from our business promotion and special events line item. I'd really like to make this opening of this park as spectacular event as we can. We have been brainstorming even just as of today with some other entities that would like to take part in really making this a community event. So if I have your consensus to utilize some of those funds for that, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Just coincide, I know that St. John's has a back-to-school bash, so don't try to compete with any of the other events that are going on.
Yes, sir.
With the back-to-school bash, but
yeah, with the city obviously being a city property, they'll kind of guide the train. But when and if that event happens, I want to be able to really kind of bump it to the next level if we can.
And because it's a park, I'd also like to try to include as many of the nonprofits in the CRA that we can.
Community event.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes, Board Member McCray.
Thank you. In regards to St. John Back to School Bash, I am not in favor of St. John, being presented over there because St. John is getting the perception within this community that nothing can happen in here without, St. John. We have more houses of worship, and I'm just saying John need to take care of their back-to-school project themselves, and then this, what we're doing for the community needs to be a separate item.
Yes, I was trying not to compete with them.
Oh, okay.
And so, yes, speaking of the nonprofits, if you have the other different places of worship that would like to be involved, to reach out to them as well. Is there anything else for the Sarah Sims item from the board? Seeing none. Moving on to consent agenda, is there any item that the board wishes to pull? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, consent agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on to old business, item A, consideration discussion of utilizing existing educational job training resources.
Yes, good evening again, Board. Michael Simon, Executive Director. This item is being brought back before you to provide an opportunity for the CRA board members and the public to continue our exploration of connecting job creation, job training, and placement with agencies that are actively doing that as a mission within their nonprofit or their for-profit agencies. And rather than duplicate efforts, we wanted to bring Michael Corbett, who's the Assistant Vice President of Business Services for Career Source of Palm Beach County. We wanted to bring him here tonight. Michael has not only been just a great partner and person to work with on our SMOT program and our FRA award from last year, but he's very passionate about what he does, and he always seems to provide a solution or another program that we didn't know about the last time we spoke. So I wanted him to come tonight again and just kind of go over some of the things that CareerSource already does, maybe even a program or so that might be new to the audience, and I'll let him answer any questions you may have after his brief presentation.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And
Thank
it's
you.
very nice to be here again. I always feel it's a privilege to talk with you, and it's wonderful to work with the CRA staff. We do a lot of good things. I thought I would give an overview of kind of the labor market and what's going on in the job market here in Palm Beach County as well. But I thought I would start with a very high overview of the United States and the mega regions. And there's 11 mega regions within the United States, and fortunately here in Palm Beach County, Broward and Miami-Dade counties, we're part of a very large mega region of over 6 million people. So we actively compete to try to attract companies, retain companies, and grow companies here in South Florida, which leads to our unemployment and employment snapshot of the United States. And where you see the pink dots, that is where jobs are declining, many rural areas. And then in the green dots, you see that jobs are increasing. Unfortunately, here in Palm Beach County in South Florida, we are increasing our job footprint, which is great for everybody. Sorry. Let me go back. There, so a snapshot of Palm Beach County in the state of Florida. In the last 9 years, we've added about 1.8 million jobs as a state. Our unemployment rate here in Palm Beach County is around 3%, but we do know that there are pockets in Boynton Beach and other municipalities where the unemployment rate is much, much higher. And that's where we'd like to focus some of our attention here tonight. I did think I would spend a little bit of time on the gig economy. You probably are hearing this buzzword more and more. We can account for traditional, non-traditional people, how they're being placed in jobs and tracked with their salaries and so forth. But it's the gig workers, these people that are working part-time jobs, working multiple jobs, contract 1099. That's over a third of our workforce. So we're constantly trying to figure out how to track the gig economy. More and more people are working in that form and fashion, which leads us to how we define these people, what are called archetypes or worker types. And you can see the different definitions of people that work in this capacity. So it's just information so that you know that there's an effort to try to help these people get trained and get jobs that are working contract and part-time jobs, part of the gig economy. The training grants that we provide, and we are funded by the U.S. Department of Labor, so we're federally funded. And we receive a lot of money to do these types of trainings. An on-the-job training grant in a very form fashion is we can pay half of someone's salary for up to 6 months as they get trained on a specific job. It needs to be a full-time job with a permanent employer here in Boynton Beach or around Palm Beach County. Then you have employed worker training to try to help somebody get to the next level. We can help pay for that type of training. And then incumbent worker training, trying to help somebody that they are trying to do customized training for their organization. So when you guys come across businesses that are looking for assistance to get funding to train people, please consider CareerSource. We have a lot of grants to do just that, and we do it each and every day. Wanted to talk about a couple of departments that we have. The Veteran Services, we have 8 veterans on staff full-time, and they help veterans, their spouses, and families gain employment. And this year, we've helped about 2,400 veterans gain employment in Palm Beach County. We have a Youth and Young Adult Department. We focus on 17 to 24-year-old youth. We put them through a career prep class. We pay them a stipend, and at the end, we get them an internship. So this young lady that was asking about internships, you may want to point somebody to our direction. And then disabilities and special needs, we help people with those types of issues. I'll tell you a quick story. We placed someone down at a hotel in Delray Beach that was deaf. They were working in the laundry department and doing housekeeping things, and they're very, very happy with her. They hired another deaf person so that she has somebody to work with. The problem that she had was the fact that when the ringer went off on the machines, she couldn't hear them. So the manufacturer has actually changed the machines for a lighting system so that they can actually do their job very effectively. But that's one example of that department's outcomes. And then prepare. We go into the prisons and the jails, and we try to help people get their resumes ready, interviewing skills, how to job search, so that when they do come out, we can assist them with trying to find employment. And this is a very effective program that has taken hold across all of Palm Beach County. Apprenticeships, the federal government has spent quite a lot of money to try to get apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships started. We were fortunate, we just received 2 specific pre-apprenticeship grants for aviation, aerospace, and engineering, and for the marine industry, which are 2 targeted industries here in Palm Beach County. And surprisingly, Boynton Beach High School has a great Embry-Riddle program, so we're already in discussions with them to try to help court some of their students into this pre-apprenticeship program. You have a lot of aviation businesses here in Boynton Beach, which I didn't recognize until I did that report for you. And that's my report for you this evening, if you have any questions.
So my quick question is that, so our CRA businesses that are eligible for these career source grants, can we have our CRA staff help coordinate to fill out the forms?
We don't even need you to do that, just point them in our direction. I have somebody on staff that they handle the grants. He's done it for 23 years. They'll walk into the business and we'll assist them to do what they need to do to try to take advantage of the grants.
The reason why I said our staff is because maybe they're not going to go to West Palm Beach. Are they able to go to Delray Beach to have that same sort of?
We'll come to the business.
You'll come to the business.
Right. I'll give you an example. David Scott is working on Project Next out in Quantum Park. We're talking about 470 jobs. We put in, as a training workforce board, $120,000 as incentives to try to help that company come to Boynton Beach. So we'll go right to the company.
Okay. And so what else should we do with this funding that we have now?
No, we're very happy to help, and we're happy to see you guys grow your city.
Okay. Board Member McCray.
First of all, I want to say thank you. Your report has a lot of meat in it, and I want to make sure that we serve it where it needs to be served. How are we advertising this, like for the city of Boynton? I'm just saying we need to get this word out. I'm just saying there's a lot of youth doing nothing this summer, and you said 17 to whatever that age, and we like to get them involved. I'm just saying, you know, if they want to get literature, how would they contact you all, or what?
We do a lot of social media outreach, which pretty much targets that population, but now you know what we do, and these folks here at the CRA staff know, so feel free to spread the word. It's a great resource to take advantage of.
Your presentation tonight, can we get a copy?
Sure.
I'm just saying to make it available.
I'll send it to Bonnie, and she can send it out to you folks.
I want a color copy like that one. I don't want no.
We'll get you. Yes, we can do things with our social media outreach and our website. We can put a link to Career Source on there. If there's any logos or any other additional information you want to put on that, we certainly can do it. I know David's cross-promoting it, and we certainly can when we visit our businesses. We can talk to some of those folks that you saw videos on tonight. One that came to mind when we talked about this marine industry grant was the Mastercraft right across the street. You know, part of their funding was to create jobs. So they actually can do the on-the-job training program and work with CareerSource for the funding. It's not even something that they have to go away and do. It's something they can train on the job. So it's great. So we're going to get those together.
So our CRA businesses are double dipping in the sense is that it's a good thing that they can get money from CareerSource and us for the economic development grants to help build out, and then to fill out those jobs of the new build out, they can ask CareerSource for additional resources.
Yeah, I would say it's more of a layering, and you have a brick and mortar grant from us, and then a job creation grant from them. So it's an incentive, you know, for them to to use, and I think rather than them throwing their hands up and saying, I don't know how to do it, you know, we can get them together with with CareerSource.
All right.
Right, I wouldn't say it's a double dipping. I'm just saying it's capsizing on you know, what's out there.
We prefer layering.
Yeah, layering is better.
Layering, okay.
Well, he said double dipping. Well, we'll do layering.
Yes, Board Member Romulus.
It's a kinder, gentler
I just
word.
want to suggest that, Bonnie, I know when new businesses are coming in, one of the things that our SMOP organization does, or whomever that's involved with kind of welcoming these new businesses once they've received their BTR, is tell them about our programs for our grants. Do we also tell them about CareerSource and all these opportunities that are available? Is that something that is part of the list of things that we're telling them as they come into our CRA?
Absolutely. We have brochures that we have them, but I can also include it in the written language on our grant for next year.
I think that would be something to move forward in doing, because sitting here as a board member was not even, I knew about CareerSource, but I didn't know about all these other extra things that they do. So I think it's important to also put that in our language, and maybe even make it kind of like one of the steps that they must take to kind of get a grant from us, where they kind of check in with CareerSource to see what options are available to help create local jobs prior to receiving or prior to getting acceptance of a grant from us or something like that. I think that would be something to really help push this forward and really create local jobs.
Is there anything else from the board? Seeing none. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of purchase and development agreement with Centennial Management Corporation for the CRA's Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Project.
Good evening again, Board. Michael Simon, Executive Director with the CRA. The item before you is a continuation of the contract and purchase and development agreement negotiations with our selected developer for the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Project. The item before you this evening is a draft contract with the details of the sale of the CRA-owned parcels, with the financing requirements and methods that Centennial will use and go through to fund the project, a detailed description of the project, and a little bit of what would happen if, for some reason, the CRA or the contractor needs to terminate the project before getting funding. And I'm happy to go into all those details one by one, or Tara and I can do it together. Whatever you would like us to bring out, we're happy to do that.
I think if we do specific questions or if any updates.
I think the only thing I wanted to update, the term sheet that's in front of you, I've highlighted the items that have changed significantly, other than firming up the language related to the general terms. A funding option was added for commercial that is fairly wide open and doesn't commit the CRA to any particular amount, because during the negotiations it was determined that those costs are a little hard to ascertain at this point, but it makes it an option for the CRA to continue to fund the commercial portion in terms of either construction or the operation and maintenance, if at the time after the whichever funding they receive is in place, you can determine how to put that in place. And then the only, aside from approval of the overall agreement, subject to final legal approval, would be to provide information and a funding amount of no more than blank to repurchase properties that are acquired by Centennial. And Mike can give you more information about that, but we will need your vote on what an appropriate amount would be to complete the agreement.
Member McCray, would you like to begin?
I'd like to begin. First of all, I see it says herein after the Cellar and Wells Landing. I don't know why we still, pursuing that name Wells Landing, because we stated that, like anything that's done in the city, that if they want to get naming rights, they need to come to the table and bring some money. I'm just saying, I don't want nobody to go out under the impression that this is going to be named after somebody, parents or grandparents, I'm just saying, and I thought we was under the saying that we're not going to put a name on this right now.
Yes, sir, that is correct, and there is not a name for the development per the discussion that you led at a previous meeting. The LLC that is on the contract itself is the name of the the company, the development company, but not the development. They have already have their paperwork in as that entity. It could have easily been MLK Junior LLC, but that is a name that's taken. But it's not. I was waiting for that, and I'm sorry I didn't get to you before. But it's not the name of the development.
Okay, thank you.
Just the name of the company.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. My concern is for the section 20, or this, the end of section 19, where you've added the commercial. It says may. What I'd like to see is that, so that the board still has teeth, because we are selling how much property for $10? Do we have that appraised value of the property that we're selling?
Yes, it's about $1.1 million, $1.2 million in property, and about 3.5, 4 acres all totaled.
Okay. And so that's kind of where I'm at with the CRA, is what are we getting out of that $1 million that we're selling for $10? Because in addition, don't we also have to have the city's going to have to do a match funding as well for the 9% tax credit?
If it is required, they will ask for that. They don't know the amount at this point, whether it be 500,000 or whether it be $1.2 million, as was mentioned in their original proposal. But there would be some amount that would be necessary that you could identify out of one of your line items.
I just want to clarify something, because I think I may have misled you. This is to allow the CRA to provide additional funding on top of what's being proposed to support the residential portion of the project. The commercial is still a required element of the project, notwithstanding whether or not the CRA gives additional funding.
That's kind of where it's confusing when you say commercial funding. It's not for the commercial.
It's not required. This funding, the commercial component is not contingent on this happening. So the reason it says may is it will be at the board's discretion if it has additional funds to contribute toward the project in the commercial. It may do that at that time to either expand it or abate rents or whatever appears or is the appropriate action. But the commercial is still a required element of the project, notwithstanding whether or not you provide additional funding for it.
Okay. And so the concern that I have is that if Centennial Management gets the 9%, and, you know, based upon what we learned from Ocean Breeze East, they're getting $27 million over 10 years to build a $25 million development, because we gave them the land plus the money, and they gave us we sold them the land for $800,000, and then we gave them a certain percentage or a certain number as well for the 9% tax credit. Correct?
Yes, sir, $567,500.
And so did they give us that money back, or is that?
The $800,000 we received at the sale, and we will use $567,500 of that $800 to act as our matching grant when the tax credit is released and the funding is released and requested by the state.
So in essence, we sold those 4 acres for $350,000. And that is below the appraised value and definitely below the purchase value of what we put in. In addition, in February of this year, Centennial got $212,000 from the county from the impact fees. And so that's kind of where I want to make sure that this board realizes that we should have final approval over the commercial financing of this, similar to the design approval, so that this is the best project that is capable here, not just a project that they can build with and pocket excess money. I want to make sure that Centennial's putting, you know, money into this. So like we will learn how much money they are going to put in to buy the other properties. And so if they put in another $2-3 million, I would request that this board says, okay, just tell us what you're doing, and let's get that final approval on all the financing of what you've done. It's kind of like the design approval. It may not be reasonably withheld, but I think that the board should have the final viewing of the financing package if they get the 9% or the 4%. And I'd like to have that in the purchase and sale agreement. So similar to having the final say in the design approval, having a final say of what exactly are the funding available. And I know you're shaking your head yes, but I need the board to agree with me. Yeah, and
Well-
so it's kind of like having a final approval on the financing aspect once they get the 9%, and to see if there's any other tax credits available, like what the county has, or the state has, or the federal government has, so that we make sure that the $212,000 that the county gave Ocean Breeze East Apartments.
I think I need to clarify that for the record.
Yeah.
When the county, an issuance of impact fee credits, or in this case, funding to pay for those credits, that is money that is provided from an entity, whether it's a credit or whether it's actual money to pay that cost, that would immediately deduct from the line item of permitting an impact fee that the state would provide. So it would drop the state's funding $212, which would not mean that they get an extra $212,000. So it evens out. It's paying it directly to it. So when they adjust the bottom line of funding, they're not walking away with additional funding.
Is that 212 over 10 years, or out of the first year?
No, that's a credit that goes directly back to the county, doesn't it? It's paid back to the county?
12,000 is only for that zone, so I'm sorry, it is not just going to, the way they advertise, it's available in that traffic zone. So I can verify exactly how much they're getting, but I don't think they're getting 200 and something thousand.
Well, that's what I read in the meeting, in the agenda, was the total of 212,000.
I think that to address the chair's issue just generally on the language of the contract, at the beginning of section 19, it is the introduction to the three separate funding options. I think it would be simple to insert a sentence there. It currently says purchaser shall have the following options to obtain funding for the project. I think it would be fairly simple to say, upon selection of one of the funding options, the board shall have, the final budget shall be presented to the board for their approval. I think that would address the chair's concern.
Correct. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it sounded better when you said it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why she's the attorney.
So just, I had an email from the county staff, the allocation for Ocean Breeze East for the, that was approved on February 5th of this month by the Board of County Commissioner, was $106,399,000. But it's not a recurring.
No, there was
issue. It's
other
just
things
that
as
pool.
well to that as well, in the board agenda.
Oh,
Yeah, there's other funding available that I saw.
maybe for this upcoming year, but for that particular year.
I'll show you what I got. I didn't check the minutes, but it said that that was only one online item. And so, and now does the board have anything else to add or say regarding the purchase and sale agreement?
Yes.
Yeah.
What, if any, language is there to not per se mandate, but at least ask for good faith of participation from the local community in terms of hiring locally and getting local contractors to work with this developer as once they go through the process of building and hiring?
It's the second page of the packet.
Construction of the project, Centennial shall host 2 job fairs, give priority to locally owned small businesses to participate during construction, include requirements in all contracts that contractors and subcontractors make reasonable efforts to hire locally, pay property management positions at a minimum of living wage for Palm Beach County. Those are the 4 things that they're committed to, in addition to other requirements from the state, from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation that attaches to the 9% tax credit funding, or any other ideas, concepts, things that we can build off of from Town Square. But that would be the minimum that is required from the CRA.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair.
Just I guess, a side request, and not to create work for everybody at CRA, but is there a way, I think that this will benefit us in future discussions on this topic, to compile a list of contractors, from the various trades within the CRA who have business tax receipts I don't know how you would look into it to determine if it was like one guy who's an electrician with, you know, a truck versus an electrical company, but I think as we move forward in this discussion of trying to put more teeth on local hiring, contracting, and so forth, I don't have any clue what type of business community exists to fulfill these desires of ours. So I think that would be information that I would certainly like to obtain to inform us of the market, the supply of labor, the supply of these types of businesses within the CRA.
That is data that's being compiled as a result of our efforts with Town Square, so I'm happy to get that to you as a list. We have the ability through the business tax receipt process to narrow down based on zip code, so I'd be happy to provide that to you. The other thing that the City Commission will be hearing at their next commission meeting, David Scott is doing a presentation on behalf of the Town Square partners that will update you on the statistics of who has been hired and what percentages of hiring has been done at the Town Square project alone. So I would stay tuned for that. There is additional information they got today that he's going to be updating for that item for the City Commission. I have an email that has 4 categories, but I think to do that tonight with the updated information coming a week and a half from now would probably be better to wait for. But we can provide you a list of, I think that's a very good point, Vice Chair, and one that's been brought up at our partnership meetings before, that if we're asking the developer to meet some type of threshold, but there is not the capability of meeting that threshold, we don't want to hinder the project. And I think we've flushed that out.
Craig.
Thank you, but let me make sure that I'm understanding. We're not just trying to get businesses within the CRA district, as long as we have businesses within the city of Boynton. That's what I need to be hearing, because I think Board Member Katz said CRA. I'm worried about the global, you know, because although it's in the CRA, all of Boynton is benefiting from it.
Yes, sir. Think of it as just a layer of an onion. We have the CRA district, then you have the city, then you have the county. So you kind of, it would be almost impossible to build the whole project with just Boynton businesses. So we look as local as very local, and then county-wide, and then regional. So it does kind of push itself out a little bit.
Vice Chair, sorry.
And I fully agree with my fellow board member. As the representative for District 1 on the west side of town, I absolutely welcome the opportunity to incorporate businesses in my district into these activities. I just know that for Town Square, which is kind of a city CRA joint venture, you know, that obviously lends itself. But I know some of these discussions about projects on MLK or Seacrest, the heart of Boynton, if companies were exclusively hired from around the city, I would have no problem with that, but I feel like some of the advocates for heart of Boynton, wealth generation, so if there's a way to accomplish both, to have a citywide cluster and then also a CRA cluster, just for my own edification, for when we do projects that are inherently heart of Boynton CRA, and that's where a lot of these community benefit agreement discussions stem from. I'd want to know, again, welcoming the opportunity for anywhere in the city to participate from a business perspective, but knowing those most local to the community as well.
Board Member Romulus, followed by McCray.
Just to dig a little bit deeper on this, I think something that should also be kind of looked into a little bit further, especially having CareerSource having been here a little bit earlier, would be potentially to have a conversation, this developer have a conversation with CareerSource to see how potentially apprenticeships could be created as this project is getting built, because I think, you know, based on what Vice Chair Katz is talking about, doing the research to find out what businesses are available and everything, sometimes that may also open up door to help us realize that we just don't have the proper people and the trained personnel to do these jobs. So, you know, we need to also create our own pipeline rather than waiting for it to fall out of the sky for us. So I would ask that a part of this conversation with Centennial be that they would sit down or open up the doors to talk with CareerSource and create some type of apprenticeship program as they're building out their structure once approved.
I had an interesting conversation today with a representative from Indeed, jobservice.com, that they are becoming more engaged in job fair publishing through Indeed. So instead of, let's say in the past, they would send an email that there's going to be a job fair kind of in general. Now they're targeting trades or professionals for the job fair itself and notifying them more individually and kind of exciting them in a different way than just kind of the black hole resume concept. And they're finding that it's really working well for them. So we're just sent some of that information to David today. So I'd like to definitely build on what we're doing now, and CareerSource is an excellent idea.
Right, yes.
Thank you. And Michael, while we're on that subject, I'm just saying, since we are in partnership with building Sarah Sims Park, I realize that we had some hiccups there. I'm just saying, you know, I'd like to know the pros and cons that happened when we used what we was requesting, local vendors, et cetera. What was the problems? I'd like to know those hiccups that we had trying to do what was requested. I'm just saying, and finding and not finding people that could, you know, step up to the plate and do what, you know, was required to do. I'm just saying, and then when we get to projects like this, we won't make those same mistakes because we're trying it now.
Any other comments from the board? Do we have a consensus? Yes.
I still think, Mike, you need input on the total amount to repurchase properties.
I do, and also your kind of annual allotment for keeping the commercial space, the leasable commercial space at a sub-market rent rate. Now, I know that maybe doesn't have to be decided exactly this evening, but obviously by agreeing to the contract, you're willing to explore those options, whether they be absorbing the maintenance and the taxes for the property, and then having some control over that rent, so that if it's $10 worth of expense a square foot and we want to pay half of that, or we want to pay all of it, and then the tenant would only be paying a $5 a square foot rate as opposed to a $28 market rate. It's a pretty simple way to do it. I think Centennial is definitely on board, as opposed to us paying to build the project. I think with the commercial square footage of the project, that we can assist as the Centennial landowner and landlord, we can assist offsetting those costs on an annual basis, and then see that offset the cost to the tenant, and we can see that directly. We can have reports, you know, required lease reports.
Vice Chair.
To the issue of should they acquire properties and this doesn't materialize and we have to acquire those properties from them, do you or does legal have language to achieve that part of this agreement but not expose us to the effect that, you know, if they know we've agreed to purchase all properties at the purchase price plus some increase over, you know, a year or 2 years, I don't want them knowing that they have no liability or there is benefit to overpaying for properties, knowing we will have to purchase them back. So is there language that threads that needle where we will cover them, but we're not going to fund some kind of outlandish acquisition project?
The language of the agreement currently says that we will pay back the contract price. This cap was meant to serve part of that. If there's additional protections we want to put in there, we could not have a cap and say subject to CRA approval and budget, which would not be an actual amount and be up to at the time of repurchase if that was necessary. And it wouldn't be a commitment. It would be a commitment to whatever you have available in your budget to do that at the time. So that's sort of this whole discussion is getting to that particular point. The current language is focused on a cap to protect your liability, but if you want to address that concern, it may be better to say subject to CRA budget availability.
I think that's a very nice general.
I think that's
better.
I think it's better.
And I think that for purposes of the audience and for you as the board, the the termination paragraph, while every contract has one, the termination would occur if we initiated that after the exhaustion of these 3 funding opportunities over the course of 2 years. So I understand that we need those clauses in contracts and in our insurance policies and what have you, but the decision is that they get funding to pay for the project in whole, they get funding to pay for a portion and we pay a portion, or we pay a larger portion and they find other funding. Those 3 options get the project done, and nobody has to worry about buying property back from this entity unless we or they find some reason unbeknownst to us this evening, or that could be foreseen in the contract, that we need to just say we're not going to go forward, and they say we're not going to go forward. But the intent of the contract is definitely to essentially almost guarantee the project to happen from a funding standpoint, because you have these wonderful steps of funding that are very achievable in one shape or the other, and cost to the CRA. But I think that we have to have the clause, and the more general it can be for us, the better.
Yeah, I think it's subject to
Yes, sir.
CRA approval.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Commissioner Pensurga, a board member.
On the topic that Mr. Simon previously brought up, my concern is that local residents and local businesses will be priced out of these storefronts. And so I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of us covering some of the cost of the rent and by whatever mechanism, to make sure that this is not an example of our local people not being able to actually have their businesses in the community.
My concern is that this project will increase the tax base for this area, if I'm not mistaken, because there's nothing there now.
It will.
And so we will have tax incremental funding from this. And so that's kind of where using a portion of that to say that if they have the commercial space lease, they receive funding. If they don't have the commercial space lease, they don't receive funding. The concern that I have is that we need to make sure that we are, have it, make it so that that funding goes to the businesses, as well. And so that's kind of, I don't necessarily know. I think it's a contract after the final approval of what financing they have. I don't think it's a contract we need to clarify right now.
In the current term, the exact language of this particular provision in the contract says upon receipt of a funding option or selection of a funding option. So that is the time at which this contract would be developed and entered into.
Yeah.
After that, budget approval now that we're adding, and prior to hammering out those particular terms.
Which is a great opportunity, because at this moment, the cost of that carry of the square footage is really just a hypothetical number.
Yeah.
And if we're going to bring that funding back, you know exactly what
Correct.
that cost is. We figure out exactly how to get direct benefit to the tenant, which I think is going to be very simple. The hard part is the vacancy. So we don't want another opportunity where the developer has to meet some minimal threshold to try to find a tenant that just drags on and drags on. But we also recognize that it might not be where you have people pounding the door down to get that last 1,000 square feet. We are already in the process of infusing the opportunity to fill space, and we will continue to during the construction process, and opportunities I think are going to continue to open up for us to get that filled as quickly as possible. But I think we can address that language specifically at that time.
Any further comments from the board? If not, I'd like Tara just to run down everything that we've discussed.
If the board is in favor of moving forward, I would suggest a motion to approve the agreement.
Put mic down so we can hear.
Can you hear me now?
Nah, I can hear you now.
If the board is in favor of moving forward, I would suggest a motion in favor of the agreement as presented, subject to legal approval, with the following amendments. To Section 19, the addition of language to require the presentation of final budget upon selection of a funding option. And to Section 20, elimination of paragraph A little I-2, and a replacement, an insertion into little I-1 of language that says, subject to CRA budget availability and CRA approval, the CRA shall purchase the properties.
Eric, does the language that you specified just now require the presentation of the funding to occur at application or after the award of funding? Because
After the award of funding.
I'm thinking that, as you said that out loud, the developer is putting together a package to submit to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation or to the state for the apartment incentive. At that moment, he is providing the agency, as part of the qualifications in the application, all of the financial information, the costs, the pro forma, everything at that moment. So if there was something we didn't like after he got award, it would be something that he could not change with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation because the award was based on what they provided. So perhaps
Prior to application,
you'd want to have a presentation, maybe, which I think is more than reasonable. I think they would agree to do that. I think they want you to be informed.
So no, the conversation that we had with Centennial was that they can make the project better, but they are providing minimums to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, if I'm not mistaken.
They are, but all of your assistance, for instance, the government match, which we don't know tonight, any other funding they may need is going to be part of their application and would be afterward as opposed. Just a suggestion.
I think, though, if I heard the chair right, the intent was to have that budget review as a way to review the request for additional funding for commercial. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, it is for all, basically for the concern that I have is what happened with Family Dollar. Not to say that because this is a commercial versus, that was a commercial versus the residential. The CRA gave $1 million to build a Family Dollar, and it became, now it's it's closing. What I don't want to see happen is that they receive the 9% tax credits and they build a project and they are able to, their pro forma, based upon what they do, the numbers change and they're able to, from the build date. Because we still have not seen a groundbreaking on Ocean Breeze East, and they were awarded in 2018?
Awarded this past spring.
So
just this spring.
So over 12 months ago, and
okay.
Yeah, they won it, and then they had to fight it and all this other stuff. So my concern is that the markets have changed a lot since then, and my concern is that we're building the best project possible. So yes, the presentation before or the presentation after, just so that we as the board know what is going on. We're not trying to say to take back anything that they add to the Florida Housing. I'm just saying if there's an opportunity to add to what they propose. So let's say we have more funding and there's a way for us to add to the project, that's something that I'd like to do. Because like I said, like Twee said, there was an extra $100,000 that they got from the county, whether that's reduction from what they're getting from the state or not. It's something that I think we should know as a board of what's going on with the project, because now we don't necessarily know how Ocean Breeze East is moving forward. And so that's kind of what I'd like to have in the purchase and sale agreements, similar updates to say, okay, we don't have a deadline for when the purchase, they have a deadline with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation when to start and when it needs to be built, but when is that? We don't even know. So it's just so that we are partnered with them until it is finished. And so that's kind of where, yes, I'd like to know what they're presenting to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. They'll give us the design approval, but let's see the financial approval and whether they get funded with the 9% versus, because we'll have the 2020 census, a lot of the numbers may change if they went in 2019 versus 2020. So I just want to make sure that we're not I don't think we're asking anything extraneously of them to come back and say, hey, let's have you report your financials and report certain updates of what's going on with the project. And so I'd like to, actually have the both updates. Board Member McRae.
Thank you. I'm in favor of not having Centennial to come back for another presentation. I think we need to go ahead with what we're doing tonight And then if they feel like they need to come back, then let them come back. But I don't think they need to come back. I'm just saying, you know, this is what, they already done what they're supposed to do. It's in our ballpark now, and this is what we're working on. And I'm ready to offer a motion with what Tara said.
I'm in agreement with getting a report back from Centennial as they go through their project periodically.
So the current motion that was made by Board Member McCray has a requirement for them to come and report upon being selected and choosing a funding option to present a final budget, which budget will not be unreasonably withheld or impact their funding.
Correct.
That's the current motion. That's waiting for a second.
All right. And we had a counter motion by Christina saying that we wanted to see what they were doing with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation.
Well, I think to do that, if we have a motion on the table, so we would need to vote that motion, and then
Okay.
it has a second currently, so there's further
Okay.
discussion, or vote on that motion, and then if it fails, you can have a second motion.
Have consensus, I think if.
Yeah, and this is discussion, so you can certainly do that.
Discussion. I think it's fine for us to just have a consensus to say that we agree with the fact that as Centennial moves forward with this project, if they can come back periodically, whether that's quarterly, whether that's, maybe that's too often, maybe it's just every half a year, just to give us an update. I think that's more than fair to ask. I don't think we're asking them to do anything too far outside of their purview. It's simply to just keep us updated, and it's a way to keep the public updated as well, because if we're going to give over $1 million of land and then also give $1 million in incentives and then basically carry out the project for the rest of the length of time with the commercial aspect, I think that's a fair ask, to ask for them to just stay accountable with us and keep us in the loop of what they're doing.
Board Member Surga?
I agree with what was just said. Periodic updates is not too much to ask for.
And that's the thing, if they don't win in the 2019, I'd like to know what is different from 2019 to 2020.
And I'll provide you the Florida Housing Finance Corporation's underwriting schedule and finance schedule at the next meeting so that you'll have the document, and they can come next month and let you know for the Ocean Breeze. I think that would be
Okay.
appropriate.
All right.
So if
we have-
there's consensus, what I would suggest is that I add language requiring adding a reporting provision that requires them to provide quarterly reports to the board on the status of receipt of funding and the project. So that would start quarterly after we sign the agreement. It wouldn't require approval of anything. It's just them coming before you and doing a quarterly report. You can pick a different time. I'm just throwing out quarterly.
I would definitely say
That
it's-
could be placed in my, motion.
Yep,
It's fine.
I'm okay with semi-annual and with that if they have a package for financing, we, have an opportunity to be reviewed before or shortly thereafter that it gets sent out. So, for example, all the different financing options that they have, if they are able to give us the opportunity to view it before they deliver it or the opportunity to view it after they deliver it, I think that's something that we as a board have the right to know what's going on with the project.
Board Member McCray, would you, I think the chair is asking to amend the motion further to say the quarterly reports, he said semi-annual, if that's okay with you, and a requirement that they submit their applications to you in advance of them submitting them to.
Or not, if possible, or submit it to us after the submittal. So like, we only meet once a month. If the deadline is the first of the month and they didn't do it the month before, that we get it afterwards. So
Immediately, as soon as practicable.
as soon as practical is, if we can get it beforehand, great. But as you know, we get a lot of projects the day they're due.
And semi-annually after that initial presentation of their application.
As a minimum, because if there was activity that occurred, in less time, you'd want to be informed of that.
So
Let's don't make this motion get too bogged down. I'm just saying.
Okay, so Tara, what I'd like with the boards is that any package that is sent for financing, we have the opportunity to review their financing package, preferably before, but if not, as soon as possible. In as much as we get reports on the status of that financing after a decision has been made. And
So here's what I'm going to propose. I think I hear you. Let me try again.
Please.
So what I think the amendment would be is to add a clause requiring periodic updates, at least semi-annually, but no later, it must be immediately after submitting applications, receiving notice of any sort of funding, key milestone.
Key
would have to be
milestones is the
updated at the
correct
next,
term, yes.
Yes, at the next board meeting. So semi-annually, if nothing's going on, but if there's a key item that Mike will help me identify those milestones, they'll come and present to you. We applied for this, here's the application. We were asked to provide further information, here's the information.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
And do you accept the amendment, Board Member Katz?
All right. All right, any further discussion from the audience? Seeing none. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Kick that can down the road.
Thank you, Tara.
Congratulations.
All right, moving on to item 14C, consideration of purchase and sale agreement with Community Caring Center Boynton Beach Incorporated for their property located at 145 Northeast 4th Avenue.
Yes, Board Chair, this item is being brought before you as a summary item and a term discussion. There is not an agreement document in the backup, so we were seeking approval of the terms or direction on any approved terms that you would like to amend. But essentially, I know that there are members of the Community Caring Center here to speak on the item. In a nutshell, the CRA is offering to purchase their existing property located at 145 Northeast 4th Avenue. And in turn, they will use that funding and other funding, be it first mortgage or donation or capital campaign, to construct a building of approximately 6,000 square feet and an approximate cost of $1,300,000 and let's say $60,000 on the current CRA-owned parcel at the corner of Northeast 9th Avenue and Northeast 3rd Street. We are, in addition to the CRA's land, we would be offering a total of $345,000 in development assistance, which would be for pre-development cost not to exceed $45,000 and brick and mortar cost of construction not to exceed $300,000. Both of those amounts would be included in a securing mechanism, a quiet second, which the CCC has agreed to. They understand why that's there and how that works, as their lender does as well. It's really just a protection of that investment. There's also a reverter and a first right of refusal on the property as well, none of which I assume we'll be able to, that we'll even want to have to deal with. But I can answer any other questions. We'll bring back a document unless otherwise instructed by the board this evening, but these key terms are important to insert into that base document.
Yes, Board Member McCray.
Thank you. Before you all proceed with your presentation, I know you have your board members here. If y'all could introduce them, because I like to be able to put a name with a face.
Yes, I'm Juliet Schiff. I'm the building architect, and with me is Alan Hendricks, who's the site planner and landscape architect. I want to acknowledge Sherry Johnson, who's our executive director. And Sherry will introduce the board members of the Community Caring Center who are here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. We're very happy to be here this evening. Let me introduce you to our board members. If you would please stand. Josephine Casello. Joyce Portnoy, our board president. Doreen Robinson, our vice president. Pat Saunders, soon to be voted in next week, or Thursday. Nancy Flynn, who is a new board member. John McGovern, Art Whitman. Have I missed anyone? I've got everyone?
Gary, excuse me, not that it mattered to me. I'm just saying, you know, I'm kind of puzzled. I don't see any Afro-Americans, not that it bothers me, on your board.
Evelyn Baker has had a stroke.
Yes, she had a stroke.
And
well,
so she's not able to be here.
But she's still active on your board.
Yes, she is.
Well, thank you. That's what I need to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So you have a presentation for us?
We have a preview of a new building and site plan that we'd like to show you. Thanks to Mike Simon for that great introduction. This is the intersection of Northeast 3rd and Spruce Street, also known as 9th Avenue, and here is our proposed building on the site. And as you can see from the bird's eye view, the aerial view, it looks like the building's always been there. And the idea of the building is that it is part of the fabric of the city, and that there was a tower on the corner, which you'll see as we go through the presentation, to create a landmark at that particular intersection.
Where did you get the name Spruce Street for 9th Avenue?
Right from the survey, here it is.
As long as I've been here, I never knew 9th was Spruce. I'm just...
If you look just below 9th Avenue, it says Spruce Street.
Thank you. I learned
So our
something
intent
tonight.
is to spruce up Spruce Street for you.
Okay.
Okay. That's the proposed 6,000 square foot building as it sits on the site. You can see the red line documents the 3 parcels that will be joined together. I'm going to turn over the next portion of the presentation to Alan Hendricks, who will talk about the proposed landscape and the layout of the site.
Evening, Board, and thank you for your service. Alan Hendricks, 122 Southeast 4th Avenue. It's nice to see you all. If you'll recall, I'm sure you recall that the CRA purchased a sliver of land to the west of this. So this graphic actually shows the street being straightened out, which is the intent. Remember this? What can I say about this? This is the site. There's 23 parking spaces, 6,000 square foot building, plus or minus. Our hope, our intent, as we work with the city, is that since this is the community caring center and they're focused on charity and food, my intent as the landscape architect is to incorporate a lot of food into the landscape, keeping it tidy and nice, but I'm excited about that part of it. I'd like to thank my intern over here, Corey Reichenberg. Did I get that right? Close enough, for doing this lovely graphic. Yes, it'll be fenced. As you'll see as we go through the slides for the architecture, there's loading areas. You'll also see what happens on the inside. But it'll be, I believe, a great addition to the MLK corridor. It's off the MLK corridor. I believe the building is significant enough that it'll kind of be a wayfinder, if you will, and will be a part of that MLK community, if you will. Yes.
You mentioned something about food. Are you saying that there's going to be a garden on site?
Oh, it's Sherry Johnson. There'll be gardens everywhere.
Okay, just making sure.
Inside the fence, I mean, you're familiar with the Community Caring Center. They grow food, and they share it with the community. So the concept, you know, if I can get it past the landscape architect in the city, is to use mango trees and to use avocado trees and to use fruit-bearing ground covers and to kind of just embrace that. The key to that is to keep it clean. We want it a nice, well-kept site. And I think the city is going to be fine with that concept. I think it'll be something to brag about down the road. Yes.
Right, you said 6,000 square foot building.
Uh-huh.
Okay, was this supposed to be larger when it was first brought to us?
No.
No?
No, not really.
Had several, it's had several
Yeah,
versions.
it's been through a couple of different.
The Sherry, at the larger version, was asked to kind of reflect and reprogram the space from a cost perspective, which she did. The lowering it to a single story with the ability to increase the square footage at a later date if they so choose to, helps them financially make the project work now, but it also gives them the ability to add some square footage on the second floor without having to, take off the roof and redo the footings and everything else. So they're building this current one-story use to the strength it needs to be to accommodate that advanced growth if they choose to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said, but let's share it to me because I thought it was supposed to have been larger. I'm just saying, the square footage on that one single building. Am I correct?
We're hoping for a 9,000 square foot building.
I know somebody was hoping for something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We were hoping for that.
Okay.
We decided to break that into phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The first phase is trying to get that kitchen, that downstairs culinary development and job training center, the incubator program, as large a footprint as possible. So it's built with a design that we can add another 3,000 square foot second floor eventually, but that's going to require additional land as well as additional finances. So that's going to be in the future. That could be several years in the future as we work out the need for additional parking. It was more important to us to get that large footprint as large as possible to accommodate that job development and business incubator. That could not be added on to at a later time. So we're holding off with the social service and the second floor until we can accommodate that at a future time.
So this view, Mr. McCray, will give you and the board members an inside look as to what we're planning for phase 1. The green area is the food pantry that you're familiar with on the middle right section of the building, where food is distributed several times a week to members of the community. The blue area in the back of the building is where the business incubator will be, the food incubators, also known as multiple kitchens. Okay. And in the middle of the space, connecting the bakery with the big kitchen are walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers. We've got 2 roll-up doors on the right side and loading area to support those as well. There's a conference room, and as you enter the building, there are 2 options. One is to enter the main building, and the other is to enter the small retail store. We're calling that space in the front circulation and flex space so that we have the opportunity to use that for multi-functions. Here's another look of the building as you see it without being divided up into the departments. And I'd like to show you what the proposed exterior elevations look like. So the upper left is the north elevation. On the bottom left is the south elevation that faces Spruce Street, Northeast 9th. And then on the upper right, you can see the east elevation that has the 2 roll-up doors that'll service the pantry and the kitchen. For those of you flying home, here's what it'll look like from the sky. Perspective views that give you an opportunity to experience the building at eye level or from an automobile height. And our first color rendering.
Your color rendering, stay right there. Where would that second floor be if y'all come back and say you want to add a second floor?
So by designing the building with a height of the maximum height that's going to be allowed by planning and zoning, we'll have an opportunity by creating a double height space at a later point to add a second floor. So The windows that are reminiscent of a farmhouse that you see up at the top, at this present time are letting light into the first floor. But in the future, those would create windows into the second floor.
I'm with you, because
You
I was
with
trying
there?
to see what the
Okay.
second floor was. Okay.
Great. And then the last view is our rendering of how we want to present the building as a corner landmark with a tower and signage and the logo. Covered entries, outdoor seating, and a very welcoming sense of arrival for an organization that's been serving the community for 30 years.
Will that have an aluminum roof?
That will have an aluminum roof. That's the plan. Questions, comments?
I got one.
Good.
Just for my own recollection, the community care center, did the name change to go from like Boynton Beach to Palm Beaches? Is that something I recall?
Yes, Community Caring Center of the Palm Beaches.
Even though I don't like that, I won't hold it. I won't hold it against you, because we are Boynton Beach and we're paying for all this. But I won't hold it against you. I support the project.
Okay.
Explain to me, why was the reason for the name change? What was the reason?
Gary's going to come up and answer that.
We've expanded our services.
microphone.
And the microphone.
We've expanded our services. We become a United Way agency, and we're part of United Way's Hunger Task Force. And in that, we're feeding much more than just this community, and part of an overall comprehensive approach to solving hunger in Palm Beach County. So because we are now county-wide in the services, particularly with our chronic meals program, we're serving dialysis patients throughout Palm Beach County, and we're trying to replicate in Kings Point a program that has been very successful, our senior care program. So we decided last year that we would change the name from Greater Boynton Beach to Palm Beach County. So we're now Community Caring Center of Palm Beach County.
With 33435 zip code. Thank you.
With a 33435 zip code. Yes, sir.
All right. Board Member Pinsurga.
I have a question for you, Sherry, if you could come back.
Yes, sir.
I was comparing my backup notes with the CRAB notes, the advisory board, and I noticed that what we have here is 300 for construction cost, 300K. However, you had originally requested a different number. I think it's 500K? Could you explain
I
your
originally
request?
asked for the 1.2 million that we needed. And the advisory board awarded 850,000.
Is this for construction only?
This was for the entire project, however you wanted to fund that. This board, when you got to it, came down to 250 plus the additional 300 based on performances and other criteria for us to get through. It will have us, we're capable of doing the entire financial project, but what that's going to do is leave us with at least a $300,000 mortgage, which we would love to be able to have gotten into mortgage-free. So I'll just put it out there, if ever you guys have a little surplus of funds and you can find an additional $300,000, it would certainly help us get in mortgage-free. So I'll leave that with you.
All right. Is there any other questions from the board? Yes. Board Member Romulus.
This is for the architect and the land planner, I'm assuming. Will the building be green certified in terms of LEED or something? Will you have solar panels, anything to kind of help make the building more efficient?
The building will be designed with sustainability in mind. We're not seeking LEED certification, though. I am a LEED AP BD&C, and Alan and I have worked on LEED certified buildings in the past, and it is part of our belief system that all good architecture should be sustainable.
Okay. And will you, I know this is Susan Neuer request, do you have any parking spaces for rechargeable, any of that will be provided on site? Any charging stations?
Electric vehicle.
Yeah, I know what she's talking about. I don't know. We can work with the city. I mean, they're not super expensive to do. So that's something we can work with the city on. To further answer your question, we looked at LEED and we will design with those sensibilities in mind, but it adds significantly to the cost of construction. You know, at some point, you know, the way the building's designed, you know, solar panels could be on that south-facing roof, if you will.
Right.
So we looked at it, and we will incorporate in our design everything that we can, but to be LEED certified adds too much to our budget.
You know, it's not necessarily the whole LEED, that's just a name.
Right.
It's like, you know, marketplace versus, you know, whatever.
Right.
It's a brand name, so I don't really care about the LEED certified. I just want that, like you already confirmed, that you are already thinking about it and you have it in mind and you're doing everything in your power to keep it feasible and make it cost smart.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
also be good for the environment. Thank you.
Sure.
I got a question for Michael. Are we going to help with the road for a continuation of Northeast 3rd Street? And what are the costs for that?
The intent in a secondary project or a simultaneous project is to continue Northeast 3rd Street through the intersection at 9th and to intersect with Northeast 10th or East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. That project will appear before you in the budget for next year. It is a discussion that we are already having in meetings with the city on what underground requirements there may be. We're working with Gary Dunmeyer on design of the streetscape now, but it would be a separate project in funding. So none of the funding that we are obligating to the community caring centers relocation and development is coming out of our budget for the road improvements.
Do we have an estimate about the cost?
We estimate it to be somewhere between $400,000 and $450,000. It will depend a little bit on what the city needs in the ground. If they don't need a connector through, that'll save some money. I'd also like to improve Northeast 9th Avenue, which is a 40-foot right-of-way currently with no sidewalks or parking or anything curbing. I'd like to see, and we can stretch that dollar to get us to Railroad and have it connect from corner to corner and possibly some type of mirrored improvement, at least curbing on the south side of 9th. So I think it's a great opportunity to leave this intersection looking fabulous as well as the MLK.
All right. And then I guess the question is so there will be a restaurant for Cafe Infusions or Infusions Cafe? There'll be a space?
There's an outdoor space. The interior space right in front of it is left kind of as programmable space, if you will. Here, you want to answer that too?
We need all your assistance for making sure that Infusions Cafe is protected and safe and has some sense of continuity and does not get injured in this process. There is space there for her with that multifunctional room and the retail space if she chooses to go with us. I personally would like to start a campaign to see her get into the new high school rather than that particular corridor or retail space, because it is not conducive to the type of traffic or the amount of traffic that could be generated, I think there could be some drop in sales because it's on a back street and requires some circulation to get to it, and she's not quite certain where the best opportunity would be for her. She is loving Ocean Avenue. She is loving Federal Highway.
Okay, is there going to be space for a restaurant to operate there?
There is space as it is planned now for that retail area, and then whatever use of that multifunction space that needs to be accommodated could certainly be used for that. We are not thinking about really at this point opening a real restaurant where it's a sit-down dinner kind of service, but more of that daytime lunch, be able to get stuff and be able to be an outlet for some of the other incubators that are there. Sort of like the Sailfish Cafe on that scale.
Which Sailfish Cafe? The one that was in the library?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more of a warming kitchen, not
Yeah.
not a full
It's not going to
kitchen.
be a full dining kitchen.
Okay, and so that's what I was hoping for, that there is going to be a warming kitchen, that I know that we have our Public Works Department across the street, and so I would assume that they are going to be visiting you a lot. With that
I hope so. That will be a good, the plans are to make sure that there is
my other question is, so the retail will also have prepared foods as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that's what I was hoping for, that
your soup, your salad bar,
the
your
food desert that
entree.
is over there, and so I'm really looking forward to this project. I was speaking to one of your board members earlier, that you really have outgrown that location that on Northeast 4th Avenue, and so I'm pleased to see that you're going to have the outdoor space, the indoor space, and that this is going to really be an anchor for our MLK corridor, because as you know, we're going to have 123 units on Ocean Breeze East, and we're looking at least 124 units on our MLK corridor. So in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have over 1,000 people there, and that's kind of why I was asking for the restaurant, the space. I understand that it may not be for Dina to move in, but something in the future that you'll be able to feed the community as you always have been.
We're also a recipient of a grant, a 3-year multiple grant that allows us to prepare entrepreneurships, but it's going to be low income people wanting to get into business. And the thought of being able to have cottage industry kind of green market availability on the weekend from Friday night to Sunday to help them grow businesses and learn that skill.
Board Member McCray.
Thank you. Mine is for, I'm sorry, but when you was talking about the mango trees and the avocado pear trees, can you put a couple guava trees in there? Because I'm just saying, 9th Avenue, we was like loaded with, I'm just saying, District 2 with guava trees.
And lime and oranges and tangerines, and we could go on. It's edible.
Thank you.
Hedges of basil, and ferns of dill. So.
That's all, just a couple guavas, okay.
Board Member Romulus.
I'm just throwing it out there, but do you consider possibly bringing in kids from the community and helping them learn how to do some of these things and recreate that back at their homes? Is that something you do already, or you would perhaps start doing now with this expanded?
We do that already, and yeah, we plan on continuing that.
I like that. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
And Tara, do you need the clarification on what the motion was?
I'm assuming the motion is to direct staff to go forward and draft a purchase and sale agreement consistent with the term sheet that was presented to you tonight.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. We have an item on the table. Is it been requested to be removed?
Motion to remove. Has not been requested to be removed?
Well, I'm asking Michael.
We have not received a request to be removed.
No. Come on, let's
All
go
right,
home.
so we will keep it on the table, and if we don't hear from them next month, then we'll remove the item. I'm moving on to item E, consideration and recommendation of the letter of intent to the Palm Beach County Housing Authority to assist in the development of properties located at 404, 406, 408, and 410 Northwest 12th Avenue.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Tara?
We attempted to revise the agreement, the letter. I personally reached out to the board chair to get his approval. He provided some very useful edits, and that is what is before you today, a letter of intent to the Palm Beach County Housing Authority with a request, an additional request to have a meeting to discuss that which you're proposing in the letter.
Yeah, we're proposing a joint meeting, letting them know what the resources we have available, and that, they meet once a month in the mornings over in West Palm Beach. We would prefer a meeting here at 6:30, and we'll make sure that it's expedited on our agenda, and that's kind of where I'd like to move forward and get a response for them within the, 30 days, and if we have no response, or 2 of their board meetings for them to respond, and if not, then we'll have to pursue other options.
I like it, Mayor.
All right. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none?
That's a finger up.
Chair.
Yes.
Just for, and I'm not even requesting to put it on future agenda items because there's no urgency, but for everyone to start pondering, if you're interested in speaking to CRA staff about the potential utilization of the Magnuson House for either CRA location as a future facility, because I know our lease agreement is coming up and within 2 years, I think, on the building we're in. Mike signed. So just to start thinking about that potentially, because I know we've had difficulty picturing what that may or may not be, and the amount of investment necessary is cost prohibitive for a lot of businesses we might want to put in there. And as a side, I don't know if the square footage would allow it, but I had conversation, or at least I'd put the question out there as far as the Boynton Chamber of Commerce, which I understand is also potentially moving in the future out of the office space that they have in Renaissance Commons. I think if we could fit us both in there, or just the CRA, obviously, is the primary objective, but just to consider that, because I know I think we've crossed a point where the goal now is definitively to keep and utilize that property as is, and rather than give it away and see what happens if the CRA, which holds all these events on Ocean Avenue, once that's all up and kicking, they might as well be located there. So just a thought. I'm not requesting future, but
Absolutely, and so I'd like to add my thought of moving it to the green space and using it as a welcoming center, because we would be able to use the parking garages for parking. That land is mixed use medium, and I feel that we can definitely develop that property with the adjacent landowners to something of high value for the CRA in the city. So I thank you for your comments to saving and helping develop the Magnuson House. And I think it's I don't know if you've ever taken a tour of it.
no.
I would suggest you take a tour of it because you'll see that it doesn't look 1919 really on the inside, and the way it's laid out, you'd have to do a complete overhaul, and it's kind of the way that I pictured it is that it is a glorified shed at this point, because of the upstairs bathroom and the downstairs bathroom really have no functioning purposes. The galley style kitchen really doesn't function as well, and in order to make it functioning for what the CRA or any other office needs would be is substantial, where keeping it as a historic building for a place for air conditioning for our different events and festivals, I think is something that may be useful for that building, because it is made of the Miami-Dade pine and it is still in good condition. Board Member McCray.
Thank you. On that same line, since y'all have to give up your lease, not really, but I'm just saying, maybe y'all could look for a space downtown, with all this development that we're doing?
It's been the intent since the town square discussion began that the CRA would be moving into, or had strongly considered moving into, the City Hall complex on the 4th floor. I have and will always be a proponent of supporting a decision by the board to move us anywhere. Another
Don't say
location,
it like that now.
Another location might be the Women's Club as well. So as of now, we have certainly been in discussion with city staff and with the architects and everyone else to look at the office space on the 4th floor of the City Hall, the new City Hall. But given that it is a commercial building and an office building, that office space on the 4th floor could be utilized by us or any other department from the city. But as of now, we are presuming that that's option on the table, option 1 perhaps, and maybe 211 and Women's Club are option 2 and 3, or 2 and 3.
I like that option 1.
So yeah, I guess Michael put it on the future agenda for just to understand what are we currently in our lease, what are our options available.
We'll do that in July.
And then the other thing is that have the CRAB board look at the purchase and sale agreements for the 2 properties, make recommendations, and also for the lease as a new business item.
I'm sorry?
So the CRA advisory board did not meet this month?
Correct.
So I'm asking that they review the purchase and sale agreements for...
The MLK and the CCC that went before us.
Okay, that would have to come in the form of a motion at this point? So we won't, it's an assignment to the board, so I don't know that...
I think we said that it's new business and purchase and sale agreements is what...
Reference to MLK?
And Community Caring Center.
They've provided recommendations on both of those items prior to your formation of the contract.
They've already looked at both of them? Okay.
Yes.
Then never mind. And then if the lease is, that's fine. Is it okay if the CRA advisory board takes a look at the lease and make recommendations?
For the CRA building?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, certainly, yes.
Okay.
CRA, yes.
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, board. Thank you. This is a big meeting. Congratulations.